The television crew set up for the first shot on the beach. There was less of them than the previous season, and Brady Gordon feared this might mean executives were losing faith in the show. He tried to push this out of his mind as he practiced his lines next to his brother Conrad. Red Tangle Island off the coast of North Carolina is the legendary site of the lost treasure of the pirate queen Alice Crimson. I don't know, Conrad said. You don't know about what? Brady swatted at a large insect going for his neck. He felt it splatter and wiped away the mess without looking. That opening, I'm not sure it pops. What do you want it to say? Brady's neck felt rashy where he had ended the bug. He guessed the thing was going for his blood. He needed more DEET. We can AR in anything we want later. I know, but what? I'm not sure we should say legendary. It makes it sound like it's not real. Brady looked down at his script and said, well, we don't know if it's real. The only treasure the brothers had gotten in years were their paychecks from the network. Now those were feeling shaky. We don't want the audience to think that, though. They might not tune in. Well, we can change the word if you think it'll help. Also, I don't think we should say lost treasure. Why not? Same reason. Maybe hidden treasure would be better. Whatever you... The brothers and the skeleton crew paused as the noise built up from the south. Soon the classic car came into view with billows of white sandy dust rising in a plume behind it. Conrad said, "You got to be kidding me." One of the crew members said to another, "I thought these beaches were protected." The red and white convertible picked up speed as it drew closer. The crew scattered, leaving the equipment at the mercy of the driver. The Gordon brothers stood their ground. At the last moment, the brakes locked up, tearing deep furrows in the beach, and the car skid to a diagonal stop. The face of a pirate wearing an eye patch was stenciled on the door. An enormous ornate X marked the car's hood. Timothy Tramp hopped out without opening the door. His wife, Skylar Clark, took her time stepping out of the passenger side. Timothy said, "Hey, if it isn't the Gordon brothers, treasure hunters and never finders." "What are you doing here?" Conrad shouted. "You know the network set us up here." "I didn't know anything of the sort. I thought you guys were still down on Blue Coast, finding old buttons and drawings in libraries for the whole season." "We've been advertising our season on Red Tangle for a year now," Brady said. Timothy shrugged as his wife joined him at his side. She videoed the car with her phone as she circled the front. She wore a fancy scarf and sunglasses. "I don't watch your show," Timothy said. "Why would I watch the promos?" Skylar spoke as she swept her phone through a shot of the waves breaking on the beach. "I watched the first 2 seasons. It got kind of repetitive after that." "I'm going to call the network on you," Conrad threatened. Skylar laughed. "The Shabby Treasure Hunter is their top show. You guys are fine, but we bring in the viewers. No offense, guys. The network doesn't own the island either, neither do you, so I think this place is big enough for 2 productions. Timothy made a show of inspecting the brothers' film crew. 1.5 productions, rather. "This is a bullshit move, Timothy," Conrad said, "and you know it." With another shrug, Timothy grabbed a bag of gear from the back of the car and started walking inland between the grassy dunes. "Keep an eye on the car for me, would you?" Brady watched them go. "I can't believe they're doing this." Conrad popped the hood and started pulling out wires from the engine at random. "That's not going to stop them. They're already here and walking across the island." Conrad let the hood slam down heavy and loud. He ran his fingers across the X, leaving streaks. "Still makes me feel better. Why did they even drive up like this? They had to bring the car in on a boat. What a waste." "Well, I'm glad one of us feels better, Conrad. They film on their phones. We'll never be able to keep up with them. Their show looks like it's filmed on a phone too. Damn it. Well, it looks like this season we're going to have to keep up with them." Conrad turned to their crew. "Forget the beach shot. We can do pickups anytime. We need content. We're filming on the fly this season." The brothers paused on the trail long enough for the cameraman to catch the mountain over their shoulders. Once he gave them the thumbs up, everyone started hiking again. I didn't know there was a mountain," Brady said. "Well, there it is. It's not on the map, and we didn't see it when we were flying in. It didn't sprout, so maybe it's too far back to see from the water." Brady shook his head as he lifted some fronds from in front of his face. "The island isn't that big, though, and all the foliage is wrong. Too tropical for this latitude." "You want to take a supernatural angle on the storyline this season? That might be interesting, especially if we're competing with Timothy and Skylar. I'm just saying. There they are, Timothy's voice echoed from above. Wave to the camera, say, shabby treasure hunter. Conrad stuck up a middle finger. That's all right, buddy. We have the budget for pixelating. We'll put you in the trailer. We also got a shot of you sabotaging my car. We'll let the network decide what to do with that. Happy hunting, boys. I hate him, Conrad breathed out. We need to figure out camp. We weren't planning on hiking this much on the first day. And I need a quotation mark there. Well, the plan has had to change, hasn't it? Brady didn't answer as he continued to follow his brother. The crew members already grumbled. It was going to be a long season. He swatted at another oversized bug, trying to drain his blood. They took all the pictures and shots they could get, but Conrad got tired of waiting. We need to open this thing up. I don't know, Brady said. He ran his fingers over the designs and the inscriptions. There was still a lot of mud caked into the carvings, but he could tell they were very old. Seeing as they weren't letters, not in any language Brady recognized, he guessed this was much older than when Alice Crimson supposedly sailed the seas. Well, there might have been one letter, though through the center of the intricate carving was a large, broad X. That seemed to be far too on the nose for this to really be the treasure they sought. But this had to be something. This was bigger and more impressive than anything they previously found in the entire run of the show. This looks like it might be a historic site. We should probably call someone in. You're out of your mind, Brady. This is the biggest find we've had since the show premiered, and we're competing with those two. If we wait, they might find it too. We can get in real trouble for disturbing historic sites. Timothy and Skylar are just hopping around the island taking selfies anyway. No one knows this is here and we're hunting treasure, remember? Everything we look for is historic. We're opening it and that's the end of the discussion. But then the stone moved where they had uncovered it in the ground on the side of this hill. It gave a hollow, echoing, grinding noise like a sound effect from a cheap horror movie. For a moment, as Brady processed his mounting fear, he found himself hoping that the sound guys had caught that. Then the stone shifted, twisted, and lifted out of its groove right before their eyes. His only thought then was this couldn't be real. The brothers and the crew backed away from the stone. The cap broke its seal into a sucking rush of air. Hands that appeared human clawed their way out and cast the cover away from the opening. Brady's heart hammered in his chest, neck, and head. At least the bugs weren't around today. Timothy brushed off his hands as he emerged from the rough-hewn steps beyond the stone. Skylar, catch a picture of those carvings on this side. That'll be interesting. He spied the brothers and their crew staring wide-eyed, then he laughed. Oh, and get their faces next. This is priceless. What are you doing down there? Conrad asked. Timothy spread his hands. We found the main entrance on the other side of the hill 2 days ago. We got pictures of all the bodies and put in the claim forms for the treasure. Everything is marked, photographed, and cataloged. This is the biggest discovery ever on this side of the world. The network is stoked. The authorities are on their way now to secure the site. It may be a while before we get our treasure, but we have plenty of time. I'd love to let you boys get pictures for yourself, but this is an historic site. What bodies? Brady asked. You called the authorities? Conrad threw his hands into the air. Timothy shrugged. Rules are rules. Sorry you came up short yet again, but that's how it goes. Maybe you still have time to film a season walking around an empty island, collecting buttons and teasing real breakthroughs before commercial breaks, before letting your audience down over and over again with more buttons. Be nice, Skylar said as she photographed the big X and other carvings on the stone cap. The more he stared at those shapes in the stone, the more they looked like deformed skulls to Brady. The network sent us here. Us, Timothy, Conrad said. A crew member for shabby treasure hunters climbed up the stairs behind them, out of the deep shadows of that crypt. The thick shade of the forest canopy above made that passage particularly dark. For a moment, Brady imagined it was one of the dead bodies following them. Well, they've seen the error of their ways now, and we're sending them footage and proof of Alice Crimson's lost treasure. Skylar laughed as she filmed the exchange. It's not lost anymore, is it? The crew member's leathery hands grabbed onto both sides of the opening as he pulled himself out. Brady asked, how many bodies? Maybe 20, Timothy said as he turned to Skylar. Is that how many you... There was a loud click in the back of his throat. His muscles all jolted like he'd taken an electric shock. He stopped talking, but Skylar lowered her phone and said, I counted 33 when we first went in. Timothy reached for his wife, but it was too late. The figure that emerged from the tomb seized her by her shoulders and pulled her backward. She screamed. The man from the tomb, wearing rotten rags, opened his jaws wide enough to split the dry flesh of his cheeks. He then sunk long fangs into her neck with a fleshy, snicking sound of penetration. Blood spilled from the wounds as the creature fed, and Skylar screamed louder. Timothy punched at the thing's head, and dead skin fell away from a blackened skull. Bright red eyes turned wet and gooey from side to side in the sunken sockets as it refused to let her go. Conrad mumbled something, but Brady couldn't make out any of his words. Equipment fell to the ground as the brothers' crew ran away. More movement rustled within the tomb, coming up the stairs, and Brady started to back away. 3 more creatures, as gray, tan, and decaying as the first, launched out of the opening in the air. But it's daylight, Brady mumbled to himself, still shuffling backward. 2 of the monsters fell onto Timothy, driving him to his back on the ground. They growled and shrieked as they locked their fangs onto his throat and belly. Timothy coughed instead of screaming and covered his own face in a red mist spewed out of his bleeding throat. Conrad swung one of the abandoned cameras and clocked the blood-sucking thing that flew toward him. The monster spun in the air. A faded blue sleeve of the rotting coat it wore tore loose. 2 gold buttons landed at Brady's feet, and part of him wanted to reach down and pick them up. Conrad dropped the busted camera and cried out, "Run!" Brady turned and obeyed. As the leaves and thorns cut at his arms and face in a rush, he still felt like he was trying to run through water in a dream. More growls filled the world behind him, too many to be just the 4 that had already exited the cursed tomb. Something fell out of the trees and landed within the bushes in front of Brady. As it raised its clawed hands in the air, he turned left and kept running between the trees. One of the crew members cried out from those bushes. The screams descended into a gargling wet noise. Then something got him. He folded forward, trying to stay away from the fangs. Whatever it was, it had a dry tobacco stench to it. The grip was strong, and it lifted Brady into the air. At first he thought he had been lifted bodily over its head. Then he realized he was rising through the branches. The thing that had him was flying. Brady groaned and tried to twist away, even if it meant falling to the ground. The monster that had him started laughing. It slammed him into the trunk of a large tree over and over. The fight drained out of Brady, and he feared his blood would be drained next. The creature drew back and flew hard toward the tree one more time. Brady thought for sure this would break his back. He caught a glimpse of the monster's bearded face with hard, wrinkled flesh that was so pale it looked like the body had been underwater for years. The eyes were deep black, but still seemed to glow from within, and the fangs were sabers ready to stab. The flight into the tree pulled up short as a branch pierced the monster's chest. It let out a cold sigh of breath that smelled dank and fishy. The body went limp, and Brady dropped from its grasp. He scraped his back down the trunk of the tree and landed hard on his knees among the roots. He'd never been happier to fall. A dozen golden coins rained down on the ground around him. Were those from the pockets of the impaled monster? Their sound guy flew through the air upside down. He struck another tree nearby, and his body split open in 3 places. He dropped to the ground, twisting around his own spine. Many colors of liquid and greasy solids oozed out of the ruptures in his body. The primary color was red, though. Something else was coming toward him fast from another direction. He struggled up to his feet and then saw who it was. Conrad. "Keep running, Brady, keep running." His brother flailed his arms as he ran headlong toward him. "Look behind you." 2 of them caught his brother by the arms and hoisted him into the air. Neither of those managed to impale themselves on branches as they rose, though, not that Brady saw. Then something exploded in the air in a fiery burst. Were they firing cannons at them too? Nothing made sense anymore. "Conrad, run!" his brother's voice echoed from above. Brady turned and obeyed, but could still hear them crashing through the forest behind him. He broke through into a sunny clearing and realized he was now exposed. Brady charged across to the next line of trees, but then pulled up short as the glowing red eyes filled the space. He could hear the husky sound of their breathing out of time with each other. Behind him, a woman in a filthy dress flew out into the clearing with him and over his head. The heat hit him like a solid thing. All right. Brady dropped to the ground and covered his head with his arms to protect himself. The undead woman gave a long, harrowing howl as she twisted about on fire. Her hair ignited a bright red, and flames outlined her shadowy form as the fire continued to swell. Without touching the ground, she propelled herself backward into the trees and continued to fly like a living torch. A few spots back in the woods caught on fire too. Pale arms reached out from the tree line nearest him. Brady gasped and stumbled out of their reach. The skin over their arms blackened and belched smoke. The monsters pulled their arms out of the light before they fully ignited too. Brady smiled despite the situation and moved to the center of the light in the clearing. He looked for a path through, but saw the shade of the canopy all around him in a shady perimeter. I used shade twice, but that's all right. On the edges of those shadows, figures surrounded him on all sides. There were more than a dozen of them. Brady mumbled to himself 33 bodies when she first counted. Something rolled out into the light with him. It came to a stop near his feet, and the dead eyes of Skylar's severed head stared up at him. He cried out and shuffled away, but was still careful to stay in the clearing. Chuckles as dark as the shadows they emerged from filled the day. This was followed by ringing sounds. Gold coins caught the light as they spun through the sun. A few of the flicked coins hit Brady before falling to the ground. "Sundown is coming soon, boy," one voice growled. "Buy yourself something nice, pretty little boy. We'll go easy on you if you give up now." "I won't go easy," another said. "I'm paying for his blood." A coin bounced off the back of Brady's head. More of that dark laughter followed. "Feeling pretty safe out there, do you, boy? You shouldn't. Someone go find my musket." Brady turned in a circle trying to figure out what was next. Maybe he could climb a tree and travel across the tops in the sun. That would be quite a risk, though. Maybe something large and hard struck him in the head, and Brady twisted to the ground. More of that laughter washed over him, but it sounded distant as his ears rung, and he saw spots in his vision. His brow bled over one eye, and the creatures around started hissing. The screen of the phone that hit him was now cracked. It was Skylar's phone. He snatched it up and tried to dial for help from where he lay on the ground. It was locked. What was he going to do? Brady gritted his teeth and held the phone over the face of Skylar's severed head. It unlocked. He tried again, but there was no service. Brady let out a whimper, and the monsters around him laughed some more. How had they called the authorities or sent footage to the network? Did they have a radio or a satellite phone? Were they lying? God, please don't let them have been lying, he thought. He turned on the camera and started filming the scene around him. He didn't know what else to do. He thought the vampires might not show up on film, but he saw them clearly in the image. They were moving corpses. They were dried mummies with fangs. They were undead pirates. "Conrad," he shouted as he continued to film. "They have me trapped. Conrad." Another head flew into the clearing and hit Brady on the shoulder. No, 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 no. He forced himself to roll over and look anyway. It wasn't Conrad. It was Timothy's head, still coated in that mist of his own blood. "Conrad, help!" He was hit again and again, but this time it was brighter stuff. A sharp cut ruby sliced his cheek. An emerald opened the gash over his eye was wider. A bar of gold nearly knocked him out. He felt his elbow crack from a spinning silver goblet, and he dropped the phone. "Don't spend it all in one place. What are you going to buy first? Enjoy your treasure, boy. You're rich now. Filthy rich." Brady curled up into a ball and tried to protect his head from the stoning he was taking from the hard pieces of the vampire's treasures. He didn't know what else to do. He prayed help would come. He hoped Conrad had somehow gotten away. The gold and jewels continued to fall upon him as the sun slipped toward the west.